So we're back to dissecting the curious case of Liz Truss's re-emergence, her stepping back onto the stage of Half-Life, a performance so baffling that it feels like a sequel to Carry On Prime Minister. Truss, ever the phoenix rising from her own economic ashes, has employed the age-old tactic of political sleight of hand, prestidigitation, redirecting our gaze with a flourish of legal threats and accusatory rhetoric aimed at Rachel Reeves. And this is no accident. It's a carefully crafted ruse designed to hoist her back into the media spotlight, a desperate attempt at relevance, if not redemption, for a cabbage. A lettuce. First, one should marvel at the audacity of her claim that Rachel Reeves, on the eve of her trip to China, has plunged Britain to the brink of economic crisis. This from the architect of the infamous mini-budget, whose aftermath saw mortgage rates soar and the pound plummet to levels last seen when Spandau Ballet was topping the charts. Russ accusing Reeves of economic mismanagement is akin to Nero chastising the fire brigade for inefficiency. Her cease and desist letter to Keir Starmer is a pièce de résistance of this saga, a 6-page magnum opus asserting that his repeated references to her crashing the economy are defamatory, that it damages her reputation. She has no reputation, except as weed killer. Perhaps her hopes that we'll forget that her own party ejected her from number 10 faster than one could say Kwasi Kwarteng's prodigious package. We're not going to forget that in a hurry, are we? Because that sums her up. And she may be opining about Rachel Reeves jolly as the pound tumbles, but the pound's been tumbling since 2007. It doesn't mean that Truss and Reeves have not had a major delative impact on its descent. Apologies for the sesquipedalian impulse. It's the overall effect of Kwasi Kwarteng's impulsive penchant for proffering his prodigious package, imposed with aplomb on the nation at the command of leader Liz Truss. Pleader Liz Truss. There we get in one more P and really go for the alliteration. Leonard Sachs will be proud of me. But this is the lettuce jokes. The lettuce jokes may wilt, but the public memory remains stubbornly crisp. And yet, Truss persists. She accuses the Bank of England, Labour, and even the media of smearing her. Well, after the lettuce has faded so much, it does become a sort of smear. Ask President Putin, because he too probably has reached that stage where he can be smeared everywhere. Decay produces a sort of it reduces matter to liquid, and her somber video proclamation, austerely delivered with the charisma of a malfunctioning Alexa, lays the groundwork for this blame game. And here's the rub: the pound's tumble has not been reversed. And Liz Truss and Rachel Reeves have done nothing to stop that tumble. If anything, they've done more to encourage it. And it's not a choice between Liz Truss and Rachel Reeves. They're both at fault. And they share that peculiar distinction. Both have managed, through sheer force of poor policy, to exacerbate the descent of the pound. Now, Reeves' trip to China, a legitimate diplomatic effort to address trade and economic ties, is met with cries from all corners. Tories like Mel Stride and Harriet Baldwin demand her immediate return, as if the markets will stabilise the moment she steps off a plane. The markets don't stabilise if she's in her office. Proximity to the pound is not going to help its revival. Certainly not if it's the proximity of Rachel Reeves. Get her out of the way. Maybe there's some hope then. Reform UK's Richard Tice, with his usual flair for melodrama, calls the trip ridiculous. Can't you find a better word than that? while Truss herself remains convinced that Reeves' policies are singularly responsible for the nation's fiscal woes. She needs to look in the mirror. It's almost Shakespearean in its tragicomedy. The pot calling the kettle black. The pot calling the kettle an arsonist. Let's not forget Truss's true motive. This is not about economic stewardship or even political criticism. This is about Liz Truss reminding us that she still exists. She can do that simply by opening the window. The stench of rotting cabbage, the stench of rotting vegetables, the stench of rotting lettuce will be evident. She has no seat in Parliament, no policy platform, no credibility left, yet here we are talking about her again and holding our nose. Her gambit has worked because she's all over the newspapers, smeared like yesterday's lunch. Perhaps not as intended, for instead of rehabilitating her image, she has solidified her status as a stain. She could be rehabilitated in a revival of Captain Pugwash, couldn't she? Seaman Truss, and she's the equivalent of a 1970s Austin Allegro, once ubiquitous and now an object of ridicule. And so we find ourselves pondering one final question. Is this calculated self-destruction a cry for help? Does she need support? Or is it a genuine belief that history will vindicate her? If so, she needs to go back to school and start doing some work. Truss has achieved her goal. She is back in the conversation. Whether we laugh with her or at her, she has succeeded in reclaiming her place in the public imagination. Lettuce and all, we will not forget her brief tenure. Every time I look at my mortgage statement, I remember her.